Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another stream. Thank you all for joining me tonight as we look into patch 11.10. We're very excited with what the potentials are and what we could potentially do with all the new different builds now that Coven Renewer is no longer taking a tight hold on the meta. Unfortunately, there are a couple of new offenders that we'll have to be mindful of as we go into the game tonight. The first of which is Skirmisher Jax has proven to be very, very strong as a durable frontline, as well as consistent damage and survivability thanks to Ironclad. And to counter that, a lot of people are going Vel'Koz. So we potentially want to find a backline carry that can either beat both of those or beat one of those very consistently. Now, fortunately for us, we do have a predetermined list of some of the things we wanted to try from yesterday. As we look to start our game here, some of the big comps we're looking to test the powers of are 9 Forgotten, as well as a 6 Knight composition, and also potentially the power of Azir as Aphelios as a Nightbringer carry now that he can critically strike. Fortunately for us, most of these builds want to have swords, and in the event we do end up with a Vel'Koz as a backline carry on a Knight build, then we're very happy we grabbed this ability power. Otherwise, we're still happy to have it, just that we may turn it into a Ginsu's. I am of the opinion that Kalista is one of the best early game units and item holders for many different carries across different compositions. So finding an early 2 Legionnaire as well as a Kalista specifically could be very powerful for us. We also have the ability to just make a Ginsu's. Which we're immediately going to slam onto Kalista here. As well, we look to buy Sejuani, as in the event we do want to go for the Nightbringer Aphelios build, we want to make sure that we have a couple of Nightbringer units already to make it easier for us. I believe this will be one of the strongest potential front lines that we can have here. Knowing that we have a 2-star Aatrox, as well as the Legionnaire trait, and 2 Cavaliers to back it up, where Hecarim is one of the stronger units that we could potentially have. this early in the game. Couple that with the fact that Callista already has the Ginsus, and she should be very quickly coming online as a damage threat for our early game here. So seeing that we have the Ginsus and we have a spare ability power, we're very happy to go something like a Kale build. And if we don't decide to go for Kale, we could also go for Aphelios, Draven. But we want to make sure that we take the crit glove here, as Infinity Edge will be a very powerful option for whatever we end up doing. I'm going to sell the Kled here, and if we do win the round, we want to buy this Lee Sin so that we can have 2 Nightbringers to put in at level 5. Ideally, we're looking to go even as high as 4 Nightbringers already. So we are very happy to be finding so many units, including the Nautilus 2-star this early, but it is unfortunate that we're finding him so early, as it will end up reducing our economy for the first few rounds, which will really put us behind in terms of being able to level. We should still be able to hit level 8 consistently, but we may have a slightly weaker composition going into level 8. So we are feeling pretty good at this point, but we know going into Carousel we would prefer a sword. Unfortunately, with the way the meta is shaped up to be, it's very unlikely that we will end up with a sword. So we're going to start looking for potentially a tier so that we can make a Hand of Justice. In the event we're unable to get either of those, we could look for something like an armor on the ribbon that could turn into a Guardian Angel down the line. One of the first things I want to do here is I actually want to get above our 10 gold so that we can start earning our economy. It's a little bit difficult seeing as we did also find the Yasuo, who could be another carry with our current items, in that he is the new carry of a Nightbringer Dragon Slayer's composition. However, Yasuo very significantly prefers the safety of range, so I don't believe that we would want to look for Dragon Slayers unless they start showing up for us in abundance. I'm not sure what's stronger between Aatrox or Yasuo at this point. I know Yasuo does provide 2 Nightbringer, but he's considered so much of a carry, where Aatrox is considered a frontline tank, that I'm not sure that I would actually want Aatrox here to be swapped out. with that in mind, we are a little bit sad that we lose our win streak, but it's completely expected because we're not spending the extra money to level up. Also, we haven't even hit a 2-star Callista, so the damage that she's putting out is much, much lower than it could be. Fortunately, we did naturally find a 2-star Lee Sin, where at this point, so early, is very, very powerful. Now, we don't particularly want to look for skirmishers here, but it's definitely a possibility. And since that is such a possibility, I do look to buy the cannon. And we also have a trundle that we can put in, so for now I think one of the stronger plays we could make is actually do a 3 skirmisher and 2 legionnaire opener here. Potentially swapping Yasuo in as the 2nd legionnaire, because that will give Nightbringer, and our Lee Sin is looking to be our strongest unit at the moment. So fortunately we did pick up that win, and with that I'm going to sell the Aatrox to buy the 2nd Yasuo. Unfortunately we don't find a sword or an ability power or anything that could really further our game plan here, so we are going to grab the crit glove. Actually, we are going to grab the bow, as it could be used if we want to make Yasuo into a carry and play a composition revolving around Yasuo. And we may very well end up doing that, as we already have a 2-star Yasuo here. So what I am going to do is I'm going to make the Runon's Hurricane on him, I'll put a Ginsu's on him, and I am actually going to commit a Jolt Gauntlet. So this is looking like it's going to be a 4 Nightbringer game, but not necessarily with Aphelios as the main carry. So, with us looking to play this Nightbringer composition as the game is giving us so many, the next big power spike for us will be to put in the 4 Nightbringers, and then it will be to add our Dragon Slayers. So I think in the immediate, we could go up to 4 Nightbringers right away here, but I'm not sure if it'll be worth it. I do think, however, that it will be. So I'm going to look to sell some of our spare units here, so that what I can do is I can put in our Nightbringers, and I can actually put in 2 Mystic here. What that's going to do is it's going to make it much stronger for us to potentially start winning some more rounds, seeing as we want to preserve as much health as possible with this new game plan. The reason why we're keeping our cannon on the bench for now is just so we have an extra skirmisher here, or else we would be looking to sell him as soon as possible. Yeah, so going into Carousel here, now that we have really good items for our Yasuo, we really want to start looking for potentially items like a tier that we could use on a Diana. And thankfully that's exactly what we get. So now we're able to make a Frozen Heart for Diana, and potentially what we could look to do moving forward is if we get another magic resistance, we can start to itemize Mordekaiser as our secondary carry. So seeing as we're only going to keep 4 Nightbringers in the composition, and we will end up taking out specifically Sejuani in order to put in Diana, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the Frozen Heart on her for now. So thankfully, because of the power of our Yasuo being able to ramp up so quickly and get increasing true damage for his ability, we're able to defeat the Abomination, which is one of the stronger early game compositions. So here I'm not actually sure if the 2 Mystic is more powerful than the 3 Skirmisher, considering our Lee Sin will be staying alive much longer. So I'm going to try putting the Skirmishers in for the composition right now. So fortunately, our Yasuo does have a very powerful item build with both the Jeweled Gauntlet as well as the Runon's Hurricane, which does apply on-hit effects, including the potential to crit and the increased true damage per auto attack. So since we're in such a powerful position here, I'm actually going to look to go for level 7 quite quickly, as I know that's where we're going to be looking to find a much higher chance of getting our four cost units. I also keep the Lulu on the bench here as I want to be able to put her in for another Mystic, and it just doesn't really kill our econ to be able to hold on to her for now. We do find Rise, who I would say is a bit of a stronger Mystic than Lulu, just because she is able to polymorph a couple of units, where Rise has the potential to hit multiple units with such a strong frontline here. Also, we're very happy to see the ability power, as it could turn into a Gunblade on our Mordekaiser. And we're happy to see the Tier Glove combo, because that can very quickly make us a Hand of Justice.
With the Scotia Total Equity
So,
Plan, we can enjoy our home.
I wanted to try to slow things down a little bit as far as our stream goes for music, because I think it's getting a little bit too hypey right now. And I want to take this game a little bit slower and not get too lost in it. Oh, well, not tonight. Thank you for joining us. Stream's going well. Game's going pretty well so far. We were initially going to try for Aphelios, but we did find a 2-star Yasuo, and we actually had very, very powerful items for him, so we decided to make this into a Nightbringer plus Dragon Slayer game. Looking now at the potential items that we could pick up here, I think the strongest thing we could grab is just the Giant's Belt, because on Mordekaiser, one of the things we're going to want more than anything is health. Also, the only reason why we were playing Sejuani was to give us some time for us to find Diana. So we're definitely going to take her out and put in the Diana that we hit immediately. Thank you for joining us again, not tonight. It's really appreciated. And it's really nice to be able to have someone there on the other end of the line. How are you doing this evening? Hopefully you're keeping well. Good, I'm glad to hear it. As far as the game state goes right now, we would love to grab Aphelios, potentially put him in at level 9 if we're able to find Kindred as our second Mystic at level 8, just to give more power to the Nightbringers as well as give a second Ranger. But in the immediate, what we're really concerned about is just making sure we can get to level 8 and find our 4th Dragon Slayer, or find our 3rd and 4th Dragon Slayers in Pantheon and the eventual Mordekaiser. As we look to go into Carousel here, we don't particularly have much that we are looking for, but if possible, we really want to grab the sword or the belt. Unfortunately, those are both going to be high priority items, so it's very unlikely that we're able to find either. Yeah, so with both of those out of the way, we'd be happy with the armor, but that's gone as well, so we may end up settling on... I would say the Shadow tier just because I think it will be stronger than taking the bow here. So I'm still looking to get to level 8 as quickly as possible. Oh no, don't worry, you didn't jinx it. We're just playing a little bit weaker version of our composition because instead of rolling here at level 7, we're looking to go to level 8 as fast as possible and then spend all of our money to hit more of our units, ideally even a 3-star Yasuo, as he's looking to be our main carry that we've itemized this game. Now I have a Heimerdinger on my bench here. Even though he's one of the strongest units to put in as a spare unit, I don't actually think I'll be playing him because we're going to want to put in another Legionnaire, which will eventually be replaced by Mordekaiser, and in the interim I'll be using Callista. So to that end, I will probably end up selling the Heimerdinger as we'll look to level soon. So here, since it'll keep us above 40 gold, I do want to level and potentially roll just to look for any major upgrades we can find. I don't want to commit too many of my items yet, knowing that I want to play Mordekaiser, but also if any item components will be dropping, they'll be dropping against the Raptors here on stage 4-7. So I don't want to make anything without knowing what I could potentially have. So fortunately we do have the option of a Morellonomicon on our Morgana, but I'm not sure if that would be the strongest play, just by nature of our Morgana still being 1 star. As we go into 4-7 here, unless there's a unit I desperately need in the shop, I'm just going to be looking to save my money. More likely than anything, we won't be getting any items here from these chickens, and we'll probably end up with the items that we have plus potentially 2 to 5 gold as a drop, which will put us over 40, which is what we'll be really looking for here. On 5-1 though, I will be spending all of my money. Wow. Alright, so we do find not only an ability power, but also a way to put us over the gold amount. So we're feeling pretty good here. I'm just going to be quiet for a minute as I roll, just because I need to make sure I find certain units on the pickup here. So we were able to hit quite a few units. Unfortunately, we didn't find Pantheon, as that would have been able to replace Kennen to maintain 3 skirmishers, but still have 4 Dragon Slayers. Also, in my fervor for rolling, I hadn't started to itemize our Mordekaiser yet. Which will cost us the round here, but I will definitely do next round. I am going to sell the Trundle, seeing as the only unit we're going to look to 3-star is Yasuo, considering we are doing more aggressive rolling and not finding very much right now. I will be buying some of the spare 3 costs that we find, just because it takes them out of the pool for... There he is. For finding ourselves more Yasuos. I'm extremely surprised, just by the way. I was really surprised to see that we didn't end up with a, any Pantheons until the very end, but I'm very thankful that we found one, as that does let us round out our comp and put us in a much stronger position here. We're going to stay at level 8 for a little while, no matter how nice it would be to get to level 9 and potentially add something like Aphelios. Because we are close to getting Diana and Yasuo as 3 stars. Considering we already have the Trundle and the Lee Sin here, we're not going to be looking to buy these units, but considering we're near top 4, and we don't have much in terms of upgrades we could make, I am just going to wait here. So what I did here was I slightly adjusted my unit's positioning so that Yasuo is less likely to be affected by the units in the front line, and he can potentially get to their back line sooner. It seems that it worked reasonably well here, as we were able to delete their entire composition really before they had a chance to do anything. Since we're not going to make it above the 10 gold here anyway, I am going to buy both of the units, but I will sell them as soon as I need to make breakpoints. Looking at items here, our Mordekaiser is not fully itemized, so ideally we'd like to grab an item for him. The only one I could see being potentially really powerful is like the Jeweled Gauntlet, so that's what we're going to go for. The other option could have been the Shadow Sunfire Cape, but since we have a Morellonomicon right next to him on Lee Sin, I didn't think it was as valuable as it could be. So here we have to make a decision if we're also going to look to go for 3-starring Lee Sin, and we definitely could because they have buffed his damage. That just means to me that we would sell this Diana. Because it's a much higher upkeep cost to try to look for the 4 cost unit to be able to have as a main carry. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to put this Jeweled Gauntlet on Lee Sin just to see the damage output that he's able to provide for the team. Unfortunately, this will be a bit of a poor showing because he did get crowd controlled by Viego, so he wasn't able to cast his spell at all. Considering that the Pantheon is mainly there just for the sake of the trait bonus, I am going to make sure to buy the Lee Sin. Just because if we're going to 3-star either of them, we need to pick up every single one we find. Yeah, so we don't roll here, knowing that if we did roll down, we would have to make a choice on selling one of our units to potentially buy the other, and we just really don't want to do that. So for now, we just hold our money and we just wait. As you can see, this is a very powerful comp as we've managed to get win streaks even when being in top 4 here. Unfortunately, when we do end up versing the person in first place, it's very likely that we'll end in second. But we'll have to see what happens as we almost have a couple of 3-star units that can really keep us alive and could be very, very useful in giving us a win in the game. So even though it's not looking super likely, we may end up winning this round. If Mordekaiser is able to get his shield off here and kill the Kindred. Yep, so unfortunately, we barely lost to the Vel'Koz there, as Mordekaiser was just too slow on his attacks. Now that we found a second Jeweled Gauntlet, I may actually put that on Lee Sin to further increase his critical strike chance, as well as the damage he'll be dealing. The other option would be to put that on Mordekaiser, seeing as he is an ability power carry and we are itemizing him to stay alive. But I do personally believe that the best Mordekaiser items would be defensive ones. So for now, I think the correct play is just to wait and see what we can do closer to round start. So unfortunately, we didn't hit any of our Lee Sins or Yasuos or even a Pantheon. So I do want to put this Jeweled Gauntlet out as it could potentially make the difference between a round win and a loss. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to give it to Lee Sin, seeing that we are almost to 3 stars. And the fact that his spell will be dealing 550 damage plus, 450 damage plus the ability to critically strike, in a large area is pretty good for us. Unfortunately, as I said at the start of the stream, the Skirmisher build is looking to be the strongest build in the game right now. As you can see, a Jax with these powerful items is able to potentially even beat out Vel'Koz, where Vel'Koz is the only unit that gives him a run for his money, as it were. So as we get down to very low health here, we're starting to do some desperation rolls, hoping to potentially find our units. Unfortunately, we didn't hit either, which is really, really unfortunate. Seeing as we're not favored for either person we're versing here, I am going to just sell the Yasuos and hope to find the Lee Sin, which we do. Yeah, we're very happy for the top 3 finish here, but I want to see, especially with this double crit build, if Lee Sin's able to get his damage up, I want to see how much damage he's able to deal. So he dealt 1700 in area of effect. That is quite a large amount of damage here. Unfortunately though, we're not going to be able to get to Vel'Koz in time, and I really think that we're going to not make it versus our opponent's composition here without Vel'Koz being targeted. Oh, just as I say that, Yasuo is able to find a way with the Runon's Hurricane, buying us more time and giving us the potential of a top 2 finish. So unfortunately, we weren't able to find another Pantheon because we've been selling a couple throughout the game. The top person is running the 6 Skirmisher build that everyone's been very worried about lately, because you're able to run 6 Skirmishers with Jax, 3 Ironclad to make them very defensible against physical damage. And also, he's running Garen as a Knight to be able to soak some frontline damage with Nautilus. So the reason why we put our Lee Sin over on this side of the board, even though he'd be taking a bit more damage, is because we do have the Nightbringer trait that does give a shield for percent of their health as well as more damage. Couple that with the fact that we want our Lee Sin to be casting as often as possible since he has 2 Jeweled Gauntlets, means that we're able to secure a win versus the Shadow Clone, and very likely, as we'll see here, a top 2 finish, which we will always take. So if we were to grab any item from Mordekaiser here, it would be the Warmogs, just to give him a little bit more survivability. Fortunately for us, being in a top 2 scenario, we're really happy to just hit our composition, find our units, and really, we're happy with however this game plays out. Seeing that this person leveled to 9 and had a 2-star Viego, it's very, very unlikely that we'll be winning anything in this game. But we'll see. What I am going to do though is I'm going to move Lamb and Wolf over so that they can be a little bit more bait versus the Viego. Unfortunately, this person did move their Jax to the opposing side, which means that our Yasuo is going to take the brunt of the damage here, and that will mean that we will definitely be losing this round. Yeah, as you can see, the power of this composition is just too much for us to handle without perfect positioning, and we're very happy to take a top 2. I love the emotes, by the way. So after that game, which we are always happy to end in the top 2, we're back to Plat 3, and we're able to continue on our climb. So, as we can see, we played flexibly, looking to go with Phelios, making the early Ginsus, putting it onto Yasuo as a carry, almost finding a 3-star Yasuo, but playing what the game gave us with 2 Jeweled Gauntlets onto Lee Sin, and a 3-star Lee Sin, to make our composition into a very powerful 4 Nightbringer, 4 Dragon Slayer, with the 3 Skirmishers. Not tonight, since we have you on the stream. Is there any little legend that you'd prefer to see? Absolutely. Let's put on a little bit of Fire Chunk. So along with Fire Chunk, one of my favorite booms to couple with it is the Dragon Charge. Because there's no specific fire boom like there is for water or electricity, I definitely want to use that. Unfortunately, I don't believe that I own B-Chunk, so Fire Chunk it is. Considering I can't buy B-Chunk from the store because it's a legendary little legend, and you can only get those out of eggs, I couldn't even use it if I wanted to, so sorry about that. I'm also going to do a little bit of a throwback here and use the Black Hole Arena from set 3. And with that, let's jump right back into things. So the other comp positions that I was really looking to run tonight would be something involving Knights and Redeemed, and just potentially running 9 Forgotten, just to get a power rating on how that composition feels. Obviously, we'll see what units we end up with, but if we're going to go 9 Forgotten, it's a very forcible build, as we would take many of the shadow options that we're presented with, make sure to grab items for Draven, potentially Katarina as a carry, knowing that we'll have a second assassin in Diego, and look for aggressive leveling strategies when we find 2 stars of our units. Just looking at general reports from the last couple days as the meta's been shaking out, I did notice that there already is a very strong composition that will involve Kayle in the use of 4 Knights, as well as a Lux to have Redeemed, along with Rel and Kayle herself. So that'll give 3 Redeemed and 2 Ironclad, with Nautilus being one of the Knights. And then we splash in any Mystic unit, ideally a Kindred to keep Kayle alive. That, however, will be a composition for later, as we're going to look to grab the sword to start, knowing if we do want to go Forgotten, we're going to need to get Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, any sort of item to help Draven or Katarina. As well, we could use this towards our 4-Knight composition, knowing that Kayle's best item is actually Guardian Angel, because you want to make sure she stays alive long enough to ascend through her different levels. Beyond that, Ginsu's Rageblade is very powerful and very preferred.
Don't let the door hit you on your way to hell.
So what I'm going to do just as an early game composition to buy myself health, buy myself some time, is I'll be looking to play 3 Hellions off the bat, knowing that we can use Kled as a physical damage item holder for something like Draven, at least for the first couple rounds of the game. Yep, the fact that we naturally hit a 2-star Kled for free really puts us in a comfortable position. Unfortunately, we don't end up seeing any unit that we would particularly want for Forgotten, but we do see a Leona, who we're going to take, because what we can end up doing with Leona, and Poppy to a degree, is use them in the interim for 4 Knights, along with Nautilus and Thresh, who will eventually be replaced with Darius and Tarek. There's also a potential hilarious option that we could just go Hellions this game, in the event that we end up naturally finding, let's say, 6 Kleds, and we do have swords that we can use on him. It would be interesting to say the least. For now, I'm going to put the tier on Ziggs. If we do get a blue buff, I'll make it on Ziggs, but I want to be very clear that I will be putting it on something like Katarina if we end up going Forgottens. And if we end up going the 4-Knight comp plus Kayle, I could put it on someone like Lux, I could even put it on someone like, I don't know, Rel, to ensure they can get their casts off a little bit more consistently. It is unfortunate this person has a Morgana, who's a very powerful early to mid-game unit, so we'll probably be taking a loss here. But we're hopeful that we can at least kill the Poppy to reduce the amount of damage we'll be taking. Yep, so we do kill the Poppy, which is great. If we'd be looking for any items in particular, we do know that we would want to have ability power to make a Ginsu's Rageblade for Kayle, potentially for Draven as well, and we could also make a Gunblade for Katarina, so to that end, I'm actually going to take the Needlessly Large Rod here. We also get very lucky with finding multiple Forgotten units, which means that we don't have to run these Hellions as an early game option. What I will do, however, is I will leave these certain units on my bench for now, because I don't want to sell all of them for economy, knowing that I'll keep Victor for later, and I will also be putting Kled in at level 4 as a second Cavalier. I do know there's a Sejuani in the shop, but the fact that we have a 2-star Kled, personally, makes me feel that he would be a stronger option. So I believe we barely win this fight thanks to the 2-star Vayne that we have. So as we naturally level, we put in Kled as another Cavalier, and we can potentially sell most of our bench to be able to get the 10 gold if we're able to win. And the biggest thing we're going to want, especially if we're going to go 9 Forgotten with a level 9 composition, is as early economy as possible. So to that end, I'll sell my units here and hope that A, I can find a Katarina soon to be able to start using these items, B, on the carousel I can find a Crit Glove for Infinity Edge or a Tear for a blue buff, and C, that we continue to have luck with our Forgotten units. Because having a 2-star Kled this early in the game, along with a 2-star Vayne, is really giving us a very powerful early game. So even though there's a Spatula, which hopefully someone else will take to buy us time, we're looking for the Crit Glove and Tear. I would say Crit Glove is a little bit less important than the Tear, to be completely honest, because Katarina with blue buff is a completely different carry by comparison to Katarina without blue buff. The removal of her need to auto attack twice before moving to a different target makes a night and day difference. So now that we have the blue buff, we want to find an item holder for it, but since we don't want to sell any of our Forgotten units, we're just going to buy Nautilus here to be able to try to have another knight to put in at level 5. Because don't forget, as we make our way towards level 9, we don't just want to be throwing in every Forgotten unit under the sun. We want to make sure we're playing our strongest composition that we can to preserve life and potentially win streak. Yeah, see, so the way we were able to keep the 2-star Kled in the early game really is letting us have a powerful frontline unit that can also deal damage. So for now, as I've said, we're just saving our Forgotten units. We're just biding our time and waiting to potentially find a Katarina that we will put in at level 5 over Victor or even Nautilus now that we have a blue buff to put on her to start working on her damage items. If we get a Crit Glove on the Armory on stage 3 or on the Krugs, we're very, very happy as we will have perfect items for Katarina. Since I have a second here, I'm going to quickly run off because I have to go check on something. I'll be right back. So, in order to preserve our win streak here, we definitely want to level up. Because if we're able to maintain our 40 gold while also maintaining our win streak, it's really important, as once we're able to get to a 5 win streak, we actually start earning an additional 3 gold, which offsets the amount of gold that we're losing for an earlier level up. Unfortunately though, it's looking like the front line of these redeemed units, coupled with the buffed Aatrox who's constantly healing, will be too much for us without applying more of our items. So we're comfortable selling the Vayne, as we're not looking to go for a 3-star Vayne here. I'm going to take the recurve bow in the hopes that we'll be able to turn it into a usable item on Draven or use as a potential frontline item with Titans. Welcome Korvax, thank you for joining us for the evening. Yeah, it was not tonight's personal preference going into the game that we have a chonk. So, you know me, man of the people, definitely wanted to oblige. So currently we're in the second game of the night. First game of the night ended off with a second place with 4 Nightbringers and 4 Dragon Slayers, where we had attempted to go Aphelios as a carry, but ended up going for Yasuo, as we had perfect Yasuo items, and we also ended up, funny enough, with a 3-star Lee Sin, and the game had given us a Morellonomicon and 2 Jeweled Gauntlets. So our Lee Sin was hitting for like 2,000 damage in an area of effect. It was pretty funny. Right now, I'm just running my strongest units available. Unfortunately, in order to maintain some economy now that I'm heading into a loss streak, I had to end up selling my spare unit there. But I'm looking to go for 9 Forgotten this game. We have near perfect Katarina items. All we would need is a crit glove, and we can really... We can really make a powerful composition here, because we already have blue buff, but I don't want to try to force that without actually having Katarina on the bench. Dinner's ready. No problem, enjoy. So this person's going to be going Kale, which will be very scary for us, but thankfully, we're looking to run Viego. So we should be able to steal the kill with good positioning. The reason why I say with confidence that they're looking to go Kale is because they have exact and perfect Kale items, as well as the redeemed frontline, including some Knights and some Ironclads in the interim. So there's no crit glove here, which is a little bit disappointing for us. But if possible, we may end up just grabbing something like the Shadow Magic Resistance, because we can turn that into a useful item on Draven along with the bow. So here, since we're feeling a little bit weak, we do want to look to roll, and we get very lucky in finding a Rel, which gives us a 3rd Cavalier, as well as a 2nd Ironclad. So we have a very, very strong front line, but unfortunately we don't really have the back line to be able to support it at the moment. If we found a Draven, that would change, as I would be able to put on the Shadow Runons. on him. And once I find a a Katarina, I'll be looking to sell the Kled and put the items on Katarina. We're very hopeful for a single crit glove between the wolves and the armory on stage 4-2, and potentially the chickens on stage 4-7. So we should get it, which means we will have all of our items on Katarina and feel pretty fine about it. Here we find a really early rise, which we're very happy about. But we wanted to make sure to pick up at least a Warwick before we start leveling, because otherwise we're not... The potential to find him drops drastically at level 7. I believe it drops something like a 19% from 35. So if we don't find at least a single Warwick, we're going to be in a very rough spot. At level 7, what we can do is we can look to keep Nautilus in for 2 knights and take out the other 2 Cavalier units. The other way we could play this is use our advantage currently, play a little bit slower, and potentially look to go for a 3-star Hecarim. If we do go for 3-star Hecarim, I actually would really enjoy running 2, if not 3 Cavalier. And I would potentially run 6 Forgotten with the Nautilus and the Rel to have the Ironclads and the Cavaliers. Because Hecarim alone will provide so much healing through damage in the front line that he'll make a fine frontline carry. Yeah, as you can see here, like, Hecarim has soloed 4 people at 2 stars, so you can imagine the power that he would have at 3. So we're not going to be looking for a 3-star Nautilus here, as he's not going to be our primary carry or a main source of our damage. And thankfully we do hit the crit glove on the Katarina, making her into a very powerful backline assassin. If we are going to go 6 Forgotten, however, we will not be including Warwick and we will not be including Vayne, as we will have our damage threats spread much more towards the front line. I'm also going to give Hecarim a Gargoyle Stoneplate to increase his healing, since our game plan does dictate that we'll be looking for a 3-star Hecarim here. The fact that we found a 2-star rise at a 5% chance means that what I'm going to do for sure after this is take out Vayne and put in Rise. Yeah, as you can see by the mana lockout on Katarina, she's just constantly whipping across the map and dealing her damage. Unfortunately, we don't have the 2 Assassin perk in for her spell to be able to crit, but once we do, her damage will increase by about 50%. Which, as you can see, would make the difference for killing things very quickly. So any Assassin that we find will be a power-up for us. Also, now that we've completed our Hecarim game plan and our Katarina items, I am going to be looking to start itemizing Hecarim as a frontline tank and carry. So to that effect, I'm going to be grabbing the shadow armor here and making a Titan's Revenge on our Hecarim. So as I said before, I'm going to be putting Rise in, and I will be selling the spare Vayne, buying the Kazakhs, and putting that in over Rel for now, as I think having the 2 Assassins will be much more important for our damage, as now her spell can critically strike and she has a 100% critical strike chance. Let's see if I'm right in a second here. Yeah, so you can immediately see that she's dealing much more damage than the previous fight, even at 1 star. You can also see that Hecarim is just staying alive for so long in the front line here that we're actually able to beat out an Abomination composition with multiple 2-stars. From here, I'm going to look to start leveling towards 7, knowing that Hecarim will have just as good odds at level 7 for rolling, and we can find more Katarinas consistently. That'll also let us put Rel back in as another Ironclad. So we'll be staying at level 7 for a little while, and the two options we can do are Forgottens plus Assassins, or keeping something similar to what we already have, as we have most of our powerful units, along with that are using items, in the composition already. Yeah, as you can see, even with Katarina being knocked out there, Hecarim will be able to handle the Varus on his own. As far as items, we're just going to be looking for an item that'll help our Hecarim. So what we'll grab here is the Shadow Magic Resistance, knowing that it's another Forgotten bonus item, that it's Shadow, and Magic Resistance will be really useful on our Hecarim. Unfortunately, that did combine on our second Thresh, but that's okay because we're also looking to 3-star Thresh. Potentially. We don't want to be spreading ourselves too thin, however, because we want to make sure that we will be able to hit level 8, as that will be the point that I think will be comfortable with the composition, staying with 2 Assassins, 6 Forgotten, and splashing in the 2 Ironclads. So this person doesn't seem like they really read the patch notes, because they were going for a build involving Vayne as a main carry, but fortunately for us, Vayne was just recently nerfed very harshly. What we'll do is take a little bit of a break from rolling and start thinking more critically about which Forgotten units we're going to use now that we're not going to go for 9 Forgotten. So I think of the Forgotten units that we don't want to run, I think we won't be running Vayne, I think we won't be running Warwick, and I actually think we won't be running Draven. So to that end, looking at the units we already have, we have ourselves Hecarim, Thresh, Katarina, Ryze, Victor on our bench, and Warwick on our bench, who we can and will eventually swap out for Viego. So I think I feel comfortable selling the Vayne that we have on our bench and being able to start putting a little bit of money into leveling so we don't fall too far behind on the game state. I also think, depending on what item we get here, we can sell this Thresh and not look to go for a 3-star Thresh, even though the damage that he gets on the hook is actually quite large and the duration is extremely increased. So we'll end up seeing what we get here. Yes, we do get the magic resistance, which means that Thresh or Hecarim will do very well with that. So here, I think the correct play is to, at least for now, take out the Rel, just so that we can have 6 Forgotten in for our composition. We very badly, yeah, there it is, thank you, very badly needed to find ourselves Katarina. Also, the fact that we do hit the 3-star Thresh, with being only off by 1 unit, makes me feel confident that using the Neeko's help on Thresh is the right play going forward, as there will be a Kayle player, and having them crowd controlled for a longer period of time is the best thing we can look to do in this game. I'm very torn about this, but the reason why I'm putting Draven in over Warwick is because I'm confident that having the extra gold to be able to sell when we find Viego will be very important. Yeah, as you can see with Katarina jumping around the map, even at 2 stars, she is our main damage threat, and Hecarim is just so survivable in the front line, even at 2 stars. Yeah, with all the rises that we've seen, it's possible that we could have actually gone for a 3-star rise, but I don't believe, without having him itemized, that he will be worth it for a 4-cost carry when we're looking to get 3 stars on Hecarim for sure, and if possible, a Katarina. The only upgrade I could make to this composition right now would be to swap Draven for Viego, opening the slot for Rel, which is the reason why we're still keeping Rel on our bench. Unfortunately, we did find our match here potentially in the Aphelios. Yep, we found our match in the Aphelios because he was on the opposite side, where I do believe Thresh's hook would have almost killed him. As we look to go into this carousel, we want to make sure that we have the ability to itemize a 3rd item on Hecarim if possible, or to potentially open Thresh up as a damage option. To that end, I'm going to be looking to go for the Ionic Spark. If I cannot get that, then I'll look for something like the Gargoyles. Yeah, so with Ionic Spark, that will make it so Hecarim will be a much stronger frontline unit, since he will be reducing the magic damage of the opponents near him. Sorry, magic resistance of the opponents near him. Yep, so thankfully we do find the Viego. Unfortunately, we haven't found the Hecarim yet. But I'm confident that we will. So unfortunately, without the Hecarim being at 3 stars, his damage and healing is greatly reduced, making him much worse than he could be here. We also didn't lock to buy the Rel, as yes, getting an additional Rel would be nice, but Katarina and Hecarim are our main carries and damage sources, so we're going to want to make sure that we can have them as high star rank as possible. To that end, I'm actually going to position the composition something a little bit more like this, moving Rise up to the front line so that he can start casting his spells and potentially stunning the enemies a lot sooner. Yep, so thankfully Katarina was already able to pop the Guardian Angel on the Kayle, and now that she's thrown her dagger across, Kayle shouldn't be an issue for us. When the person gets 2-star Kayle and Kindred, that will be much more concerning, but in the interim, our composition is feeling very, very strong. We also don't worry about rolling since it's Dragon Round, and I do believe that the magic resistance that's on that dragon is not going to be very good on Thresh. Katarina's full, Hecarim's full, so I'm actually going to put it on Rise to enable him to be a much more consistent frontline unit. The other option could have been Viego, but I do think that putting it on Rise will be a little bit stronger here. If we were looking to go level 9, we would definitely add in Kindred, but we're not, so we'll just skip right past it. Yeah, unfortunately right now, we're just waiting on Hecarim and Katarina to appear in our shop, and it might be a little while. Thankfully we are sitting at 66 health, top of the lobby, and top 4. So even if we don't end up finding the Katarinas and the Hecarims, we're still feeling pretty good about our state of the game here. We were also able to Viego steal a 2-star Garen, which if we didn't have confidence before about winning the round, we definitely do now. The only issue that I can see is this person has a not unkillable but very hard to kill 2-star Rel, which means they'll be taking less damage than they would have. So here, no matter how much I dislike it, I believe the correct play is to sell the Rel to buy the Katarina, knowing that we're one off from both of our carries being 3 stars. Yep, and since we did the roll and actually found the Hecarim at 0 gold, this is where we feel comfortable locking our shop, knowing that next round we'll have a 3-star frontliner, to couple with our 3-star mid-range in Thresh and a 3-star backliner. Or sorry, hopefully a 3-star backliner in Katarina. Unfortunately, the mix that they had of Rise stunning our Katarina, plus still having a 2-star Hecarim, means that we probably don't win this. That is, unless Viego ends up just completely stealing all of the opponent's units. Yeah, very close, but we do break our win streak. However, we do end up with a 3-star Hecarim, putting us in a very secure position for first place. So now Hecarim will be dealing 2,400 damage across the duration of his spell, healing for 1,600 over the duration. As well, he's going to be reducing the magic damage of magic resistance of opponents by 40% with nearby, and will be dealing magic damage to them consistently through the item. As well, he should be very survivable with a Gargoyle Stoneplate for increased healing, and the Titan's Revenge to be able to start dishing out damage as a potential backline carry. Unfortunately for us, it looks like this time Kale was able to survive thanks to their kindred. However, Hecarim is our most survivable unit, so we will end up losing, but only by a single unit. And as we look to go into Carousel, we're feeling really, really good here. The fact there is an Ironclad on the Carousel means we could potentially grab that. Since it's gone, what we are going to end up doing here is we're just going to grab the health, which will make us a fourth and final shadow item across our composition, and we'll put it on Thresh for a Shadow Zizarot portal. Which gives us the maximum increase of 70 attack damage and ability power, plus 40 additional percent, so we're actually going to be sitting at 98 additional ability power. Also, seeing that most compositions are keeping their carries on the far corner, I'm going to move Thresh over to the other side of the board. So unfortunately, our Katarina's not hitting Kale, so I don't think we win this, even though we're sitting in a decent position, just by nature of Kale being able to put out absurd and consistent damage while having immunity over time. As you can see, it's coming down to positioning wars here, but the easiest way we can work to try to win these positioning wars against the Kale player is having Viego in one corner, Katarina in another, and moving our Rise and our Victor a little bit further back so they're feeling a lot safer. What we can do is we can also hold Thresh and press Q to move him over. Unfortunately, I did it a hair too late. But I was hoping to move him over so that Kale would have been grabbed. But as you can see, now that we have a 3-star Katarina, her damage is just leaps and bounds higher, and we are having no problem against this Kale. With that, this should secure us a first place. Yeah, so the nerfs across all, the buffs across all the different Forgotten units have made them a fair bit stronger, I would say. I don't know if it's something that we should be scared about per se, but definitely staying at level 8 and rolling was the correct play there. As soon as we made Hecarim 3 stars, he was nigh unkillable. The fact that we kept the Thresh made a alternate threat for our board. So no matter where we had our Thresh, our Katarina could mirror it and make both sides of the board very scared. Yeah, welcome back, Corebacks. You're back just in time. We were able to beat the player who had a 2-star Kale as well as a very defensible Rel by rolling at level 8 and finding ourselves near the end of the game a 3-star Hecarim and 3-star Katarina. And since our Katarina had perfect items, we were able to secure the first place there. As well, we hit a 3-star Thresh very early, which normally wouldn't be ideal, but since Thresh deals 1,000 base damage with his hook, and and coupled with the fact that we were running 6 Forgotten and had managed to get 4 Shadow items on our Forgotten units, 2 on Thresh, 2 on Hecarim, we actually gave him an extra 98 AP and made his hook deal almost 2,000 damage, and if the character hadn't died, they were being pulled for 4 seconds of stun. Couple that with the fact that we had Katarina with 2 Assassin jumping around with a blue buff and critting guaranteed with Infinity Edge, that's a very easy first place finish for us. So with that, I think we're just good to jump into our last game of the night. So far, we've had 2 very strong games tonight. Our first game, playing the best we could using the items we had to grab an early Yasuo, get him to 2 stars, and make a Nightbringer composition around that, almost finding Yasuo 3, but ending up to find Lee Sin 3. And in this game, we played our composition based off our items, knowing that when we did find Katarina, even though we found her a little bit later than we would have liked, she started to deal an extreme amount of damage even at 1 star, and she was able to completely carry our damage from the back line at 3 stars. Hecarim was able to survive as a drain tank in the front line for a long period, and we felt very, very confident about that game from start to finish. So I can say with some comfort that Forgotten is probably too strong now that they've buffed all of the units individually. We'll have to see what they do on the next patch. I'm not sure if it'll merit a B patch, but we'll see. I think Katarina maybe is just a bit too strong with blue buff as a carry. They may nerf her to 30 mana for her cast, unless they feel the blue buff interaction is warranted, in which case they may just lower her damage across the board. But I still think the fact that she's an assassin, and Infinity Edge giving her guaranteed crit, plus Assassin trait giving her spells the ability to crit, is probably too powerful to also synergize with blue buff. We'll have to see what they do. Moving into this last game of the night, you have to place higher than the other chunks. I mean, they're Lunar Revel chunks. I don't know. They're a little bit newer. They're the shinier model. Not sure I can contest. We'll have to see over the course of the game how the game feels about that. Starting me off with an early Nocturne and a sword makes me really want to try playing Nocturne again like last night. I do know that I was discussing yesterday to try to play 9 Forgotten, which we got to 6 Forgotten, noticing that 9 wasn't ideal for our composition. As well, we did manage to go our composition with Nightbringers. Although we didn't end up going Aphelios, I did notice that Aphelios in an offline game I played, even with Infinity Edge, he has the issue of having too many items and not knowing what to do with them. This start is screaming. Absolutely screaming. Coven plus Nightbringer. I know it's been nerfed. I know it's not as strong as it was. But I think at the very least for an early game composition, it will be fine for us here. If we can get Coven going, what we will end up doing is we'll want to eventually swap into something like 4 Assassins plus 4 Brawlers with 2 Revenant, because I do feel that Nocturne can be a very powerful carry now if we can get some attack speed onto him. So to that end, I'll pick up the Brawlers. I don't know if I need all of them right now, but Set can also be a very dangerous frontline threat. We hope to pick up LeBlanc here, but in the event we don't, it's not the end of the world. Also, just based on the fact that we have the swords, we could look to go something like Aphelios. We'll have to see. I do think we take a loss here because there's a 2-star Kha'Zix who's about to get mana to completely rend our Vladimir's health bar, since he's isolated. Ooh. Welcome back, Not Tonight. I do agree that spicy chunk is best chunk. At least in this game, for sure. So we don't want the Shadow Glove, as I was finding that even though Nocturne gets a high amount of damage with his ability, he does end up losing it fairly quickly. He ends up losing his health fairly quickly. What I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to swap to a 2 Brawler frontline and 2 Assassin backline, and just make an Infinity Edge on Nocturne, because I know that's the composition that I'm wanting to play this game. I could keep these Morganas and Lissandras, but since Coven has been reduced in power so much, I don't actually feel like they'd be something that I want to play, and I'd much rather try to work on my economy, as that's 9 gold just sitting on my bench. I also put the spare sword on Nocturne, because I want to make sure that he's healing as much as possible with his ability. And we're able to pull out the win so that we can get above our 10 gold breakpoint and start working on our fast economy. Just the sheer power of our synergies in this early composition makes me feel really comfortable slamming items and selling those units. Knowing that we can get 4 Brawlers if we find a Nunu makes me feel really happy. Looking to level up to 6 and slow rolling at level 6 in particular to try to find things like a 2-star Kha'Zix, a 2-star Gragas, 2-star Set, potentially a Warwick 2-star. But until then, I want to make sure to save as much money as possible in looking to get my economy going to level up to that point. The way that we want to play this game is we're going to be looking to get Nocturne to 3 stars, as he will heal 100% of the damage he deals there, and will get a large amount of attack speed if he's only hitting 1 unit with his ability. As you can see right now, the fact that he has the Assassin buff is really helping him, and if it wasn't for Warwick's Infinite Duress, we would have been able to come up with the win there. We do sell the Warwick on our bench, because even though we'd want to have him as our 3rd brawler, we don't need him there, and we'd rather have the 20 gold. First and foremost, I'm definitely looking for an attack speed here for Nocturne if possible, knowing that regular or Shadow Ginsus will be the strongest option. It's possible that we're going to get it, but highly unlikely, seeing as we are on the last pick. Yep, so since the attack speed is gone, we grab the ability power, knowing that we would want to make it into a Ginsu's Rage Blade to really crank up the power of our Nocturne. Here we buy the Kha'Zix and we just wait, knowing that we aren't particularly likely on a single roll to find enough units that will power us up. And we want to try to, once again, save as much money as we can to get towards our breakpoints. What I could do is level 5 to try to make our composition a little bit stronger and try to preserve health. Knowing that we're going to be spending level 6, we're going to be spending a lot of time at level 6. Unfortunately, we did match against the other person who also leveled here, but thankfully, we do find ourselves in a decent position thanks to Nocturne's ability to deal area of effect damage. Unfortunately, however, I do think we lose here, but I'm not 100% sure because Nocturne's barely getting these attacks off with next to no health. So you might be asking, what is the best build for Nocturne in terms of items? And honestly and truthfully, I would have to say Nocturne really appreciates having attack speed, so Ginsu's is a night and day difference for him. As well, the Infinity Edge with any assassin makes them very, very powerful. The third slot, however, now that they fixed the bug that stopped him from being able to heal correctly based on his attack damage and based on the number of units hit, I was actually finding great success and comfort in running the Shadow Runon's Hurricane, since it hits 2 different targets and potentially increases his healing. Other options, to be completely honest, anything attack damage, which is why the second I saw this attack damage, I said, yep, that's just going to sit on Nocturne for now because it'll mean more healing for him. It could be a Giant Slayer if we find there's composition to have lots of health. It could be a Deathblade to be able to break through opponents. If we get a Shadow Belt, Zeke's Herald is amazing as a Shadow version because all of the attack speed of adjacent units gets funneled directly to him.
I sense fear.
So here, even though we don't actually have that high level of units, we are level 5, and our Nocturne does have items, so we feel confident that we can just leave them in play as they are and not look to aggressively level to 6. The other thing that we notice is on our bench we have LeBlanc and Katarina, which means that we're going to have 4 assassins with 2 brawlers going into level 6, which is probably the strongest board state we could have if we're able to hit the 2-star Nocturne. The fun thing to do with the tier I found was we don't necessarily need Katarina in the composition. I actually prefer to not run her, if possible. So what we can end up doing is we can put blue buff on LeBlanc. And yes, I know they did nerf LeBlanc, she's 60 mana now, but the reason why we want to use LeBlanc and Diana, and eventually LeBlanc to be replaced with Viego, is because we want to make sure that we have crowd control to buy Nocturne time to ramp up if we're able to get the Ginsu's, and just to defeat opponents in general. Because we'll look to be getting rid of Kha'Zix later. We can swap him out with Diana, and then we can swap Viego in over probably Katarina or LeBlanc. If we're able to find 2 or 3-star Warwick, which is highly unlikely at this point, just looking at our bench state, we could look to keep in Katarina and Viego for 3 Forgotten, but I'm also not prioritizing any shadow items, and I don't think the 30 damage will make a difference when we're not using them as our carry. So here we take the Giant's Belt, knowing that worst case scenario, we can make a Zeke's Herald on our Nocturne to power him up more. We're fine taking another loss, as next level we'll look to go to level 6, and then we'll be slow rolling at level 6 with 4 Assassin and 2 Brawlers. In particular, I would look to take out Set. Not because he's weaker, they did actually do a little bit of a fix to Set, but just because we're looking to have as much crowd control as possible, and Set provides Armor Shred, which is useful, but not as useful as being able to stun a group of units. Or sorry, to stun a unit that can then instantly recast for a different unit, as you can see our opponent's Warwick is doing to us here. So really unfortunate that we end off at 49 gold here. I am going to sell the spare LeBlanc to make 50, but what I should have done was taken Set out early and put LeBlanc in beforehand to make sure that we wouldn't have had to sell the Set. So now we've got our basic composition that we'll be looking to roll with, and we're able to hit 50 gold that we can rest on for now. Going into Carousel, we actually hope to take a loss here. 1, to make a loss streak, but 2, and more importantly, to try to get a bow for our Nocturne. Because if we get a bow for Nocturne, this composition is really online. So there is a bow on the Nautilus, and we are first pick, so we're definitely going to look to go for that immediately. Once we secure it, we feel great to be able to make the Ginsu's on Nautilus, sell the Nautilus, and put that item onto our Nocturne. The reason why we don't want to do it the other way is because Nocturne has a naked sword, and that could potentially turn into a Giant Slayer or a Gunblade, neither of which are ideal compared to a Ginsu's. As well, with the upgrade to get Ginsu's on Nocturne, we're not actually going to... commit the belt just yet, as we could potentially find something like magic resistance to make him even stronger. Wow, I was not expecting 2 Dianas this early, just to be clear. I really wasn't. What I can also do with this tier, if I'm able to find an armor at some point, either through wolves or if we found a better item for Nocturne in the armory, is to make a Frozen Heart on Diana, which will turn her into a much more utility-based assassin and will let her more consistently get her ability off. So I know this is going to be a bit of a tougher lobby, so once I get some of my lower cost units to 2 stars, I will look to level a bit more aggressively here. So unfortunately, we don't actually find anything to really help us except for this. Finding the Ivern here is very, very interesting because it gives us the option to be able to put him in right now and get 2 Revenant. But more importantly, that means that we can put him in for 2 Revenant at level 7, which may just be our go button to level up to level 7 as soon as possible. Because as you can see there, that insta-death on our Nocturne cost us the round, and we are rapidly starting to lose life without finding at least a 2-star Nocturne here. Yep, so right now we're fine with where we're positioned because all of our assassins will jump to the corner just as jump to the opposite side, just as the wolves will jump to our backline. But once we do the level up, we are going to roll down the rest of our gold at level 7 just to make sure we hit at least 2-star Nocturne, as without that we are far too weak to stand a chance in this lobby for at least a top 4 finish. So we've opened up a possibility, and we've gotten an assassin emblem, which means we could potentially run 6 assassins. And that's without the need of any particular unit. But for now, we need to do a little bit of rolling, and we get really, really lucky with a 1% Viego here. So what I'm actually going to do for now is I'm just going to run this composition. 6 assassins, 2 revenants. In this, we don't actually need to commit the spatula for revenant, we could commit it for something like Renewer, knowing that we can run Nocturne, as well as Ivern, and potentially Volibear as another frontline for 3 Revenant. So what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to sell this Nunu to get us to 30 gold. But because we need to find units, I'm not super confident that we can make it all the way up to level 8 or 9. Thankfully though, we do find the Negatron to be able to put the magic resistance on Nocturne for a Bloodthirster. The fact that we're not finding any Nocturnes is actually quite dangerous for us, as without the Nocturnes, we're not going to be able to stay alive in this game. Yep, we've rolled right down. We have some LeBlancs, but we don't have any Nocturnes. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to look to make a Warmogs on Viego, so that he has a possibility of staying alive longer to potentially collect a soul. In the carousel, I'm also going to be looking to grab a magic resistance for him, as getting him a Quicksilver will basically guarantee the collection of a unit. Yeah, we have so many pairs that it's not even funny at this point. After we do the carousel at 4-3, we have a couple of options with the spatula. If we can get magic resistance, amazing. If there's a shadow sword, I would actually really like that to get a forgotten spatula to increase the power of our Viego as a backup carry, knowing that we're going to go 6 assassins. If there isn't, then I definitely want to look for a magic resistance to make Viego a Quicksilver, and I can use the tier to make a Renewer spatula. Unfortunately, the lobby is just looking slightly too strong with our 1-star Nocturne. Which is the most unfortunate part of this composition, is if you don't find at least 2-star Nocturne, it doesn't work. But with finding 2 Nocturnes so early, I couldn't have really expected not to find any through all of our rolling. So there is the magic resistance. There's also a Volibear. So I'm going to grab the Volibear here, because we can make a Hand of Justice on something like Viego if we really need to with the tier and the Crit Glove. But the biggest thing we can do now with Volibear is we can look to aggressively level up to 8 and start to sell these LeBlancs, unless we find one here, which we don't. Yeah, so without finding Nocturne, without finding LeBlancs, we're in very dire straits. I'm not even sure that we will survive long enough to make a difference here. So first we're going to throw in Volibear, knowing that he is a stronger frontline than a 1-star Ivern. But unfortunately, we still have very low confidence compared to the rest of the lobby for moving up a star level, because we just don't have anything. To be honest, we don't have another Nocturne to make a 2-star Nocturne. We don't have the power in a frontline unit. The 6 assassins are frankly not cutting it in terms of damage. So if I were to do something drastic here, what I would look to do is actually drop down to 4 assassins, get rid of Katarina, get rid of Kha'Zix, go for the utility, put in Ivern. But I'm not really sure. Not really sure what I would replace this Kha'Zix with, if I'm being completely honest. So here we have to play as if we'll win every round, because if we don't, we just lose the game. Thankfully, we did manage to steal his 2-star Dawnbringer Karma, which should win the round for us and give us a little bit of a reprieve. Yeah, that buys us a little bit of breathing room. We're still looking to take out one of our assassins. Realistically speaking, to drop the Katarina. And as far as it goes for a replacement, I'm not 100% sure. Especially with the options that we can find at level 7. So for now, we just need to hold out and try to look towards leveling to 8. I do think something like this is more realistically how I want to run the composition, having LeBlanc on the one side, Viego on the other. Very interesting. So, we get the blue buff, and I believe at 3 stars LeBlanc will be a better holder of the blue buff. Also, we get a Last Whisper, and considering we have the assassins, I do think that the Last Whisper will prove more useful. The other option that we can do is just run a 6th assassin in Ivern here. No matter how weird it looks, I don't believe that Volibear would have been a better assassin target, as we want him in the front line, and then we want him to be able to have enough mana to cast his ability. This is going to be a very close match, but it looks like we'll take it. Now that we've power spiked a little bit, we want to start thinking how we could potentially stabilize this composition, as things are looking really, really dire for us. The first thing we need to do is find a 2-star Nocturne. That's absolutely crucial. So no matter how much I'd love to save money to level, I need to roll here until I at least hit 2-star Nocturne as one of my carries. I don't actually think a Rapid Death Cannon is right on Volibear, and I'd rather just give the Naked Bow to LeBlanc. Going into Carousel round, if we make it that far, we're going to want to have an item to make LeBlanc into more of a carry, maybe an Infinity Edge if we can find it, because that would really help us with our magic damage here. But as you can see the night and day difference of getting our Nocturne to 2 stars, we're actually able to stabilize pretty hard, stay alive for a long time, and be able to start knocking some people out to potentially finish top 4. But you know what they say, it's all uphill from here. I don't think there's anything better we can do with our positioning personally. Considering Nocturne has a set range, the only thing that I might want to do is something like this, where I put Nocturne in a position that he will be a little bit safer compared to LeBlanc and can get his auto attacks off to start ramping up his damage. Unfortunately, we match into the player that we will struggle against the most, because they have a Varus with very strong items as well as a Guardian Angel. So it's looking like this will be a loss for us, since Nocturne is the target, and Varus has been relatively untouched. But we'll have to see. I mean, we do still have Viego alive, so there is a small chance that if Viego's able to cast his ability, that we can come out with the win. Amazing. As we look to go into the carousel here, we want to find an item for LeBlanc. There's not really great options here, so what I'm actually going to end up taking is the Locket of the Iron Solari. What that's going to do is we're going to position LeBlanc where Ivern is and move Ivern next to Diana, hopefully letting us shield our composition in the backline and buying us some time, especially for our Nocturne. Considering we have a 3-star LeBlanc, it's going to be the strongest defensive item we could have found here. Yep, so what I'll probably do is run something like this. Not wanting to keep my units too bunched up, but knowing that I want to give the locket buff to my Nocturne, since it's going to give an additional 400 health shield, which makes the difference really in Nocturne being able to start scaling. So this person has shown us the reason why we've had such difficulty in finding Nocturne this whole time. And basically what's happened here is that we've just been hard contested. Fortunately for us though, we've been able to find LeBlancs, which has bought us the ability of a backup magic damage carry. So here we have enough to go to level 8, and I believe that is the correct play. I'm not exactly sure what would be the best thing to put in between the Gragas or the Draven. For now, I'm just going to put the Draven, knowing that we want the damage on our carries. And in my personal opinion, the 400 health for Brawler would not really be enough to make a difference. The other option of a unit that we could put in is something like a Heimerdinger as another backline carry, as well as a renewer for our composition. So this is going to be really close, but because we're able to, because we're able to delete the Vel'Koz as a chance, unfortunately, the Nunu bites too much for us, and we peter out in a close but 6th place finish. If it wasn't for the person in, let's see, where were they? If it wasn't for the person in 5th place, also having a very similar composition to us, looking for assassins, contesting us on the assassins, we could have had a much stronger chance. Also, if I would have moved Viego to the side where Nocturne was and gotten him shielded as well, we may have come out with a win there, but it's really too hard to tell. Overall, I am really happy with the progress tonight. Getting, I believe it was 2nd place and 1st place on the night feels really good, and if the build wasn't contested, I'd feel much more comfortable about the 4 assassins plus Revenant in a Nocturne carry. Yeah, as you can see, 2nd place, 1st place, and we'll be ending off the night with the 6th. With that is going to do it for me for the night. I'm going to be ending the stream a few minutes early here just because I don't think it's the best thing to start another game right now. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for hanging, thank you for chatting, and I hope you were able to learn something new. With that, I hope you have a great night, and take care.